Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 11 of the anime series, Orange. This one was pretty emotional, I have to say. Very much a roller coaster ride, where we're beginning very much still with that same affirming feeling that we had at the end of the previous episode. All of our cast is celebrating with each other their win in the track meet and sharing pictures, and everyone gets to pick whichever one they want to have for themselves and everything. Of course, Naho picks one of Kakeru and Kakeru picks one of her in her cheerleading outfit, and she's all embarrassed and everything. And Hagita is constantly getting the crappy end of the stick, man. Like, the only picture that even resembles him is of his parents, which they look identical, just maybe a little plumper and a little older. And it's hilarious to me all through the episode how he's trying to get sort of his foot in the door. Basically Kakeru is complimenting Naho's wearing a scarf and how cute she looks, and him, and there is Hagita in the background, hey, I got one too. And they assume automatically when they need drinks during this get together that they're having for New Year's, that Hagita will go and buy the drinks or whatever it is. And he's constantly he has an uphill battle, and I feel bad for Hagita, but it's like the comic relief you need for the dramatic and emotional events that are unfolding, where Suwa, my heart poured out to Suwa in this episode, because I've been where Suwa has been, where you kind of, even though you have feelings for someone, you have to let them go, in a sense, and not in a similar sort of frame of reference as, what Kakeru is dealing with, where his mother is gone and he kind of has to let her go. He has to move on with his life. It's a very different sort of confrontation internally that you have to go through, and that you have to be willing to grow beyond if someone cannot or is unwilling to return your affections and things like that. And in Sua's case, he's making the ultimate sacrifice, and it's that much harder for him, I think, in a sense. He's very much the stalwart guy. He's putting all of his effort into being there for the matching up of Kakeru and Naho, in spite of himself, in spite of what he knows the future to be. And this was that unanswered question being finally answered. What was the rest of his letter, as Naho wanted to know when he finally revealed to her that he too had one, and he wouldn't say. And it's pictures from the future. He can actually see. Now, there was some part of me that still had an inkling in the back of my mind that didn't want to just take it for granted that, hey, all of these characters actually somehow physically had letters manifest from 10 years down the line, or an alternate world future, whatever you want to call it. And some part of me wanted to almost believe, well, how do we know Kakeru didn't send these letters? How do we know he's not some con artist or something like that, playing on their heartstrings and just trying to manipulate people into getting what he wants? And as a writer, as an imaginative person, I want to seek out all possibilities and try to fill in the blanks and understand what's going on. And I don't want to discount any, possibilities that there could be something more going on in a negative sense along those lines. And finally, I feel like the other foot dropped for me when we see Suwa, flipping through those pictures, seeing Takako and Azusa older, and Hagita as well, seeing the married and with child picture of how happy Naho and Suwa are in that future. It's really interesting to me that all of his decisions, this is what has been influencing it, because he wants to give Kakeru a fair chance. He wants to save this young man's life, this poor friend's life, rather than have it be wasted needlessly, and even at the sacrifice of his own yearning and his own love, his own feelings for Naho. Will he make every effort, because he doesn't want to be beholden to those regrets that the other Suwa has. And as we see the glimpse of them in the future, we've had, sort of previews of what their lives are like in the future and everything like that. But in thinking, oh, how do we know this isn't a con job by Kakaru? That kind of thing. Like, I would wonder, well, are we actually seeing these characters in the future, or is it like Naho's imaginings of what they're probably like 10 years on and all that kind of stuff? But very much so it is them in the future. We have the pictures that Suwa has in his possession to prove it. And it's one of those things where even in that future time frame, Suwa's happy that he married Naho. He was happy that he could reveal his feelings to her, but he still has the regrets, thinking that in some way, very similarly to how Kakaru feels to blame for not being there for his mother, Suwa feels like he wasn't able to be there for Kakaru. None of them feel like they were able to be there for him. None of them knew what Kakaru was going through internally. If you remember, there was supposed to be a point where he was hanging out with his old friends from Tokyo, and this just made matters worse for him. They've done so much. They've made so many leaps and bounds in trying to make a betterment of his life, trying to make him feel that life is more worth living than he's currently feeling. And it's still an uphill struggle for them. But Suwa has the added baggage of understanding everything he is letting go before he can ever even claim it for his own. And I just, my heart poured out for him. I mean, Suwa best boy is a phrase I've seen for episodes now, people doubting, and even I myself. I'm right there with you, Suwa. I've felt that pain before. I've felt that frustration before, and I've tried to be the better person for it. And there is some part of me that always wonders if I had made a different choice, what might have been different, what might have been. But, he's an upstanding guy, and he wants to make better the futures of not only himself, but Naho and Kakaru, who he's putting even before himself. His self-sacrifice in this frame is no more, interpersonal than anyone else's could be, because there he has the photographic proof of what his life could be, what happiness he could have. And he's going to do whatever he can. As we saw in the original history, for whatever reason in the original history, I don't know if it was similarly played out the way it was in this particular run, where Naho was bringing up that, Kakaru's grandmother will be okay, and this just made him get angry, because how do we know anyone can be okay from moment to moment? How do we know our futures are secure? We really don't. At any given moment, anything could happen. And this sets Kakaru off. And rather than Suwa being there for Naho and exposing how he truly feels about her, as in the original history, this time around he's there for her to propel her once again toward Kakaru. And Kakaru, he's almost unsympathetic in this episode because of how angry he gets at her. And I mean, for him to smash his phone when she's trying to call him and chase after him, I mean, it's almost like, well, F him. You don't deserve it then. But again, it's that kind of shunning that made him take his own life to begin with. And we can't have that. We can't have him waste his life because of uncontrollable matters where he couldn't be there for his mom. He didn't know how badly she needed some kind of support and help. And he's guilt-ridden over that. He doesn't want to leave his grandmother's side because who knows when I'll lose her. And I almost wanted to scream during that segment just before he walks off to try to appeal to him in a way that he would understand. He feels so guilty for not having been there for his mother and wanting, wishing he had done everything he could to have been there, because he thinks it could have made a difference. Well, why, Naho, tell him in that way. Tell him, I want to be there for you because I don't want to lose you in that similar fashion. I understand you're in pain. Maybe you didn't appreciate how in pain your mother was, how much pain she was feeling for her to be so moved to end her own life, and I don't want the same for you. In the same way you wish you could hold on to your mother with all of your grip, with all of your strength, I want to hold on to you. And I don't no, I wonder if even those kinds of words would get to the heart of Kakaru in that moment. If he's so angry that he's going to smash his phone just by seeing her calling after him. And so, again, he was moved to be unsympathetic in that degree, but you can't forget, what he's gone through, what he is going through. And if you truly care about a person, you want to be there for them, you have to give them breathing room, of course, but you have to be there for them and try to take them at their own pace, but still let them know there is something worth living for. They are supported. They don't have to carry the weight, especially specious weight, unnecessary weight in the case of Kakaru, where he feels like there was something he could have done to save his mother's life. There probably wasn't. And yet he'll be his own end because he feels like he's alone in the world and he's the only one who could have done anything. But he didn't. He failed. It's wrong, but that's what he feels. And so, while my heart pours out to Suwa for his self-sacrifice, for this loving, compassionate person who is just as deserving of so much happiness in the future, he's rationalized it out in a similar fashion to how I have episode discussion videos back now, where I said that alternate future, it's safe. It's the same way it is as when those letters came from it. It still happened. It's not being erased. It's not being changed. It's the future for these characters now that will play out differently, probably. And I've also said before, this is how you do a love triangle. I mean, this was a love triangle in full effect that was thoroughly ripping at my arms, trying to rip my arms out of my sockets, taking me left for Suwa, taking me right for Naho, pushing me forward and back for Kakaru and the rest of them. I mean, the rest of them. Hagita has finally been the voice of reason as far as, the changes we're making. How do we know they're for the better? How do we know they're not for the worse? Whose lives are being impacted by the things we're manipulating? Because we promised ourselves 10 years down the line we wouldn't let ourselves live this way if we could change it. In the track meet, Kakaru took first place, but what about the kid who took second? His life could be forever impacted now because of a ill-perceived level of selfishness in a way. That self-fulfilling prophecy of changing the future and changing those regrets so that everything, all of our lives were lived to the fullest and we made the better choices. But how do those choices affect others? And it was very interesting to me to see Azusa even sort of parroting that. The idea that, I've made my proclamation to be there for Kakaru and Naho, but I want to be there for you too, Suwa. So there is just so much incredible emotional drama happening at this moment. And it's like, I don't know whether to smile bittersweetly or all out cry. I want the best for Suwa, but I truly want the best for Kakaru. I want the best for Naho. I want the best for all of these characters. They want the best for themselves and for each other. And Suwa makes that sacrifice in the end because what else can he do but try to fulfill the hopes of his future self from an alternate world that would die with regrets over losing someone who could have been the best of friends and seemingly pushing him away by revealing this heartfelt love for a girl they both have feelings for. It's this series is incredible. It really is. This episode was incredible. It was stunning and just so emotionally impactful. And I can't wait to see how this all plays out. As I'm left at the end of every episode, I have no idea. Will they succeed in saving Kakaru's life? Will he and Naho wind up together if they successfully do so? Will we still see Naho and Suwa together and Kakaru with someone else in whatever future beholds for the characters in this timeline? It's amazing to me, and I can't wait to find out. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 11 of Orange, if you've seen it as well, if you were as moved emotionally as I was, and feel for Suwa as much as I do. If not, why not? Let me know in the comments below whatever your impressions are of the episode. Love it or hate it, just love having that conversation. And so yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.